Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright, y'all, we finally got the spoilers for chapter 16 in full, and of course, the first thing that we do have to talk about have to be the first scene, Boruto and Kashin Koji. During this scene, it's more of a flashback, and during the scene, they kind of talk about and go in depth about Boruto's new flying Raijin technique. I believe that this right here is going to be very interesting for a lot of the Naruto diehards out there. In fact, Minato himself was also actually mentioned. But, however, one of the cool things about Boruto in this particular chapter, Kashin Koji told Boruto that he didn't necessarily learn the flying Raijin technique verbatim. It wasn't necessarily a one-to-one learning, and we kind of already understood that from a lot of the trinkets that we've seen Boruto utilize. Minato never really utilized that. However, Boruto was kind of looking for this and even called it the flying Raijin, but Boruto himself actually managed to create this brand new technique. This right here is something that Minato himself actually did, and to be honest, it's kind of more impressive than if he would have just copied what Minato himself found out. This is Boruto's own thing. Kashin Koji did actually say that Boruto found this technique 6 years into the future. You have to find out what arc is Boruto on where he needs to figure out how to do teleportation. But regardless, even past that, what's important for this particular arc, how is the technique different? He essentially goes to different mediums that has his chakra signature, and the best thing to actually have a medium with is going to be a ninja tool. It could be a shuriken, it could be a kunai, it could be a sword, it could be pretty much anything. And of course, to travel long distances, it would be very helpful for Boruto to have these small little shapes that he could actually memorize and actually know specifically what he wants to do or where he wants to go. Kashin Koji talked about how it'd be difficult to travel long distances with the flying Raijin technique, so of course they came up with this method, the shapes method, to make it a bit easier. There were a lot of people that kind of saying that Boruto was a little bit over designed because of all the small tiny trinkets that was on his body. I guess we now have a reason as to why he has all those small trinkets. Not only that, he also talked about how Boruto and Kashin Koji right now, there are singularities, which basically means that there are people who would kind of deviate from their own destiny. Boruto asked the question, why can't he just tell everybody about the upcoming doom in the future? Kashin Koji pretty much replied by saying that it wouldn't necessarily be helpful for him because it would kind of make the future less predictable. As of right now, Kashin Koji believes that he has a decent idea upon which direction that the future is actually going to go, even though Kashin Koji himself doesn't know for sure. Kashin Koji himself said he sees all possible futures, and if all possible futures are actually what he's seeing, I'm pretty sure he wants to actually narrow down what he could potentially look at. He even said that if everybody essentially knew their own futures, they'd essentially be acting as if they already know the future, and everything they'd essentially be doing would essentially be extremely different from what the actual destiny is supposed to be. So of course it'd be extremely less predictable. That's why Boruto himself can't necessarily tell everybody everything. And of course Eida herself seen this, and this just shows you how overpowered this ability is. When Kashin Koji was basically telling Boruto about the word singularities, the people who actually can see the future, he was basically saying that Boruto is a singularity, Kashin Koji is a singularity, and of course Eida, because Eida is actually going to be reacting to their actual conversation in the future, he said that Eida is going to eventually become a singularity. So this ability is so overpowered that he had pretty much seen the possibility of Eida actually seeing that conversation, and pretty much said that yeah, she's a singularity as well. So Eida in this particular chapter, she basically just seen that conversation, and during this actual scene she's talking directly to Sarada and Sumire. Now of course during this particular time it's kind of confusing me because Sarada and Sumire are basically calling Boruto, and Sumire even brought it up. That in itself isn't necessarily crazy. The fact that they're actually in front of Eida, and of course she doesn't necessarily know that they're pretty much invulnerable to the omnipotence ability, I think is a little bit tricky. This particular scene right here was kind of interesting as well. You kind of get to see the love triangle, quote unquote, between Sarada, Sumire, and Boruto kind of take place, and I honestly believe that this right here is going to have some sort of plot effects or some sort of plot impacts later on in the future as well, because if you guys don't necessarily know, Eida herself has kind of been a little bit shaky on Kawaki, especially early on in Boruto TBV. We haven't necessarily seen that dynamic a lot lately. However, there's a possibility that Eida jumps ships from Kawaki and then starts to like Boruto, and if that's the case, like, I don't know, it might be curtains for Sumire and Sarada. During the scene right here specifically, you kind of get to see Sumire have a little bit more speaking roles. She kind of got mad at Sarada for kind of always thinking about herself first. During this particular scene, they kind of made it a point as to kind of think about how Boruto feels, and how Boruto feels kind of like trying to withhold all this information from him. And of course, Sarada brought up the fact that, hey, Boruto is in a lot of danger. He can't necessarily fight a lot of the Shinjus by himself. Sumire kind of brought up the point that maybe if they weren't necessarily in that particular situation, Boruto wouldn't have actually put himself in that much danger. That scene in itself, I can't wait till it gets actually fully officially translated so we can see exactly what Sumire and what Sarada was actually saying. Shout out to the fan translations out there, they're great as well, but of course I want to see what the actual intent behind some of the words were. because of course there's like a lot of different translations, so we don't necessarily know for sure. Some of them are kind of more nicer to Sarada, some of them aren't nice to Sarada, so it kind of makes it look like Sumire and Sarada are actually beefing. So right along with that theme, Sumire kind of storms out of the room. Sarada tries to call her class rep. Sumire says, "How long are you going to call me class rep?" Right after that, she kind of walks alone and kind of reflects on what she just says, and she kind of feels a little bit apologetic towards Sarada. But I really want to see if this is genuinely a full-on crash out for my girl Sumire. One of the things that a lot of people did want to see is the storyline potentially bloom in the first part. In the second part, I'm guessing a lot of people still do want to see it actually bloom, and to be honest, this could be the start of that. We can't necessarily obtain anything too much from the actual specifics because Sumire pretty much already said it, and it kind of wrapped into the actual thing that she was talking about with Boruto, about how Sarada isn't really thinking about how other people feel. But of course, stuff like this is likely going to come out. She hasn't necessarily heard Sarada pretty much say that she likes him too. 9 times out of 10, that's probably going to come out as well. But of course, this is a storyline, as I said, that people are going to be interested in for Boruto writers to pretty much dive into this. I think it's smart. I think it's cool. In regards to the actual plot that's currently heating up right now, there's a lot of stuff that did actually happen. Kashin Koji in this chapter basically pulled up on Eida and Shikamaru's conversation. Now, Eida and Shikamaru, they pretty much had the conversation about the Shinju. Now, the new Shinju that they were pretty much discussing, we pretty much already know. Eida told Shikamaru about everything. She told him that Shinki is going to be the new Shinju, and it's going to be Ryu. She told him about the current target. It's going to be the Kazekage Gaara, and also told him about the actual shape of Gaara, the fact that he's actually sealed, but the fact that Ryu can actually unseal Gaara and actually, you know, basically get his target. In this particular chapter, Kashin Koji did something very cool and I think very important for the actual plot. Kashin Koji actually told Shikamaru who to send on this mission. He pretty much said to send Sarada, Mitsuki, and Konohamaru, 3 guys that are kind of loyal to Boruto. I say kind of loyal to Boruto because we don't fully know about Konohamaru just yet. As of right now, we know that Sarada is kind of bucking the whole omnipotence thing. Mitsuki kind of already sees Boruto as his son. We kind of know that by him releasing him a couple of chapters ago from that interrogation. And of course, in that particular scene, Konohamaru talked to Boruto, and Boruto told him exactly what was going to happen. Specifically that one of the Shinju are actually going to be after him. And if you guys don't necessarily know who that is going to be, of course, it's the Shinju of Moegi Matsuri. And of course, in this particular spoilers, Kashin Koji confirms this is going to be where they can actually defeat both Ryu and Matsuri. So I believe once Konohamaru comes into contact with Matsuri, he will then have faith, or at least trust what Boruto was telling him, and actually work as like a teammate in this whole entire mission. So we have Konohamaru, Mitsuki, and Sarada, 3 people, of course Team 7, that are kind of loyal to Boruto. So sending them to the Hidden Sand Village alongside Boruto, who's potentially going to pull up as well, great touch. Great touch. Now, not only that, the scene then shifts directly to what we did actually get to see in the sneak peek, where we get to see, of course, Konohamaru, Sarada, and Mitsuki, the brand new Team 7, teaming alongside Araya and Yodo. This is going to be right where they run into the actual Shinju, which is going to be a very cool cliffhanger. In this particular scene, we see us essentially being down 1. We lost one of the good guys. The Shinju are now understanding that they're on Boruto's tracks. That's essentially a sign of Kashin Koji. So of course they talk about it. But however, Ryu is kind of looking a little bit off. Ryu is kind of looking like there is something a little bit off. So I do want to know specifically what they have to talk about in this particular chapter. They may actually be sensing or noticing Team 7 plus Ryu and Yodo, and we may actually get like a confrontation in this next chapter. But in my personal opinion, this chapter right here is more of a setup chapter of starting the actual arc. The next chapter is going to be the start of volume 4, I believe, either volume 4 or volume 5, but it's going to be the start of a brand new volume. They are going to want to make a statement. I think there's going to be a lot of action next chapter. I think it's going to be extremely entertaining, and plot wise I think it's going to take a big leap in the next chapter. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. It's me, your boy Barbie, and we out.
It's a knife.